Rain and mountain snows in the Northwest, some rain in the middle, a little bit of rain in Florida. Glorified severe thunderstorm called Hurricane Oscar in over northeastern Cuba, and the dry weather continues as far as the eye can see for much of the eastern United States. There's a shocker there. All of that tonight on this Sunday night Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. If we were around 30 years ago, we would have replaced the Ed Sullivan Show. And oh, you can support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast by very simply clicking on the referral link at the top of the chat board and buy your Amazon stuff from that link as your starting point. You don't have to buy what's on the actual page. Just search what you're looking for, buy it, and Amazon will throw Joe and I back just the teensiest bit of coin, and we do appreciate all the support that you can give us. Anyway, I have to say, Mr. Rayo, you and I have been around for a long, long time, and
Yes.
we have
Some people would say too long.
yes, exactly. How long have you known the applicant? Too long.
Too long.
Um, I cannot remember. Well, this has got to be at least in our in our weather lifetimes. This has got to be the longest dry spell that the most of the east, not all, but most of the eastern part of the United States has been in. Hurricanes aside, let's just, fourth for the hurricanes. My God, we'd be a desert here. But I mean, I can't remember a ridge along the East Coast that has set up to be as powerful and as long lasting as this is.
Yeah, it is. It has been. And you know the funny thing, every morning when I wake up and I open the shades and I look out the window in the bedroom, I comment to Renata. I say, in the same tone as Morticia Adams, "Oh, darling, another another lousy, dreary day."
Another dreary. Well, I told you the story when I vacationed for 2 weeks in uh, I don't know, it's got to be like 20 years ago now, on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. We had uh, we were there for 14 days. The first 12 days were cloud free, picture perfect. It was very hot. Uh, Hardly any, not even any thunderstorms. And on the 13th day, we got Tropical Storm Gustav that came
Yeah.
up, and it was with 65-mile-an-hour winds, and it came during the night. The next day, it was cloudy and windy, and we're walking on the beach, and we passed a couple, we just started yapping, and I said, we've been here for 2 weeks, and all we've had were 13 days of miserable sunshine. Finally, the weather has gotten good, and we have to leave. And they looked at me like I had 10 heads. They just didn't get it. But I understand. Believe me. I uh, I want to pull up a chart, right on the from the get-go, because the folks on the chat board, God bless them, one of them was talking about the teleconnections. They were talking about the North Atlantic Oscillation, the NAO, and I looked at it and it was like, well, there was nothing really much to it. I think it's slightly positive. It's not a big deal. I pulled up the Arctic Oscillation, Joe. The Arctic Oscillation. Now, usually when the AO is negative is when it's cool in the east. It is over 5 standard deviations positive.
Oh,
I mean, look at this on this chart. Look at where it is. It's way up at the top. Now, it is forecast to drop down to neutral by the time we get to the end of the month. But my God, if you want any reason why things are as screwed up the way they are and how dry things are, you can look at just this one chart. And when you're 5 standard deviations above the mean, you're in some sort of extreme position here.
well, we had mentioned this, I think, about a week ago, and we'll mention it again that the all-time driest month, any month in the history of Central Park, was June 1949 when we had all of 2/100ths of an inch of rain. So far this month, we have had a grand total of a trace at Central Park, less than a hundredth of an inch. So if we continue like this for another 11 days, we will have the driest month on record at Central Park, or only a trace of precipitation, which is incredible for any month. And we just the way the long range patterns. Now we have a front coming through here just before sunrise on Thursday, a rather strong cold front. But the front has nothing to work with in terms of moisture.
All
It's
right.
going to zip on through, probably dry. I might invoke the old Tex Antoine rule: a front is a front, and mention that there might be a stray shower. But quite honestly, I don't see one coming. All I see is a front that's going to roll on through here. So those of you who are going to be out and about the next 3 days, this is going to be like this truly is like Indian summer in many cases. We're going to be up close to 80 tomorrow and on Tuesday, and maybe a little bit, maybe more like mid 70s or upper 70s on Wednesday. By the way, Joe, at Westchester Airport tomorrow, a possible record, 77 going back to 1969, and we may see temperatures up again close to 80, so that record is in jeopardy. The Tuesday record may not be in jeopardy. It's low 80s, 82 in 1979. But the fact that we're talking about this, the dry weather, the warm weather, it's amazing for this
Yeah.
time of the year. And like I said, it looks like it's going to continue dry right on through this week and right on into next week. Although by next weekend, it will not be anywhere near where we were at today. By next weekend, it'll be back to near normal. In fact, if anything, maybe just we could call it seasonably cool with temperatures in the 50s to near 60, which is about what, 10 or 15 degrees below where we were today. So enjoy the warm weather while it lasts. The dry weather certainly is going to continue maybe for another at least week or maybe even 10 days. I really can't tell you, and I don't know if you can say, Joe, when we're going to have any significant precipitation, but it does not look like it's going
Well, you
to.
know what? At this point, I mean, we're at the 20th of November. We need 11, 11 days left. Let's just get those 11 days and get them all dry. So if we, you work this hard to get this, record to try to break this and make this the driest month on record. But in all seriousness, though, we've went. It's funny because you go back to earlier this year, there was a point where virtually most of the country was out of drought. There were a few pockets here and there, but for the most part, you know, nobody was even abnormally dry. And we have very quickly now gone to a place where things are drying up fairly rapidly. And you know what? If you X out Helene, I mean, as far as the southeast U.S. is concerned, certainly because the rain from that never got up the coast. But here in the southeast U.S. and here where I am in North Georgia, if we had some heavy rains at the very beginning of August, and then we had 8 inches of rain from 8 to 12 inches of rain from Helene. If you take that out, okay, it is it has been bone dry because most of August was bone dry, most of September was bone dry. As you take out those hurricanes, we've hardly gotten any rain whatsoever here. So, and certainly since Helene, there's been no rain. The weather's here has been spectacular. I mean, this is just, this is usually the dry season anyway in the southeastern U.S., but this is dry. I mean, this is really my azaleas are blooming. I was so
Yeah.
happy because I planted encore azaleas, which are supposed to bloom multiple times during the spring, summer, and fall, and they didn't bloom in the summer, but they bloomed flowers. Not all of them, but some of them put out some flowers in the last month or so. So at least I have that. Um,
My Facebook memories shows that a couple of years ago, my wife, she didn't try to grow one this year, but 2 years ago she had a hibiscus that was on our deck, on our back deck, which was in full bloom. And I made the comment, I took a picture of it, beautiful red and orange coloration. And I said 75 degrees today, and the hibiscus looks like it's enjoying every second of it.
yeah,
It was 75 degrees today. The only thing missing was the hibiscus. But one other thing that we took note of, the two of us looking out the window, now most of the trees that we have that surround our property are not overly colorful in the fall. They're mostly kind of a yellowish orange, And I would suppose that we're close to the peak of that right now. A lot of yellow orange colors in and around, especially shows up when the sun is low to the sky and shining directly on those. But the one thing that Renata mentioned was the fact that the leaves are falling now. They're falling off because they're dry. They're just
Yeah,
bone dry. They come down and you pick them up. You can see how they're crackly, if you will. They just have not had um, any moisture to work with in the last few weeks. And interestingly, you mentioned about the summer. I had somebody when I posted on Facebook about a week ago. I said this is going to be possibly the driest month in history. Somebody wrote in his response. He said, "Well, that may well be, but this was probably one of the wettest summers on record here in the tri-state area." And I said no. I said June was below normal. September was below normal. July was pretty much right on target. We got about 4.5 inches, and it was August. August we had that period where, and it was only one period. It was only in that one weekend, the weekend of the
right.
18th and 19th of August, where Long Island got hit, parts of Connecticut got hit with like 8, 10, 12 inches of rain in one day. And that, if you were in that zone where all that rain fell, that probably skewed your entire thoughts about what the summer was like. You probably, from that, saying, oh, it was a wet summer. No, it wasn't. That was one anomaly, that one singular period, that one time in the middle of August that was very wet. Otherwise, most of the summer was either near or below normal in terms of dry. September was a dry month, less than 2 inches at Central Park. And now we've got this, where we're begging for rain and we haven't seen any. And in a few seconds, I'll bring up the drought monitor and you can see for yourself what it looks like across the northeastern United States.
All right, so we're gonna let's do Hurricane Oscar, and then we can come back and do the drought monitor map. So here is a loop. This is the floater loop, the ghost floater loop of Oscar, and it's a even in this tight shot where this thing is small. I mean, it really is a glorified severe thunderstorm. Gales only go out 40 miles to the north and north of the center and 30 miles to the south. I mean, that's how tiny this thing is. All right. I mean, really, it's just the size of, I mean, clearly it's a hurricane, but there's so much dry air across the subtropics, and there's a lot of dry air just to the north of it. So once that gets into the circulation, you're going to probably start to see this uh, begin to look rather ragged here.
Rich
And
Rothmansky, by the way, on the chat board, he says it looks just like an MCC. For those of you who are the
yeah,
uninitiated, MCC is a mesoscale convective complex. In other words, just a tight clustering of thunderstorm activity, and that's exactly what it looks
yeah,
like.
like I said, it's a glorified severe thunderstorm. Oscar made landfall on the northern coast of eastern Cuba at 5:50 p.m. It was at 20.3 north, 74.4 west, moving west southwest at 7. Maximum the lowest pressure was 986 millibars, and the maximum sustained winds were about 80 miles an hour. But I mean, we really are talking about a very tiny system. And while we do have hurricanes up for the north coast of Cuba, we have various tropical storm warnings and tropical storm watches up for the surrounding islands as well as the Bahamas. You can see that the Hurricane Center's forecast track is for a very slow turn northward. By Tuesday morning, it's back out into the open waters of the Atlantic, then turning northeast as a tropical storm. And it's probably going to wind up getting absorbed by a developing low that's up well to the north of it right now, and that'll be that. I mean, so you got to your 15, Joe. So everything
Yep,
about
15.
15 is where we are now, and there's still time to get a couple more. So we'll see where it goes in the next week, couple of weeks, because the pattern across the Caribbean is still the same. Lower than normal pressures continue across much of the Caribbean Sea. So don't be shocked if a week from now we start to see something else try to form down there. At least it certainly wouldn't shock me.
Well,
And
I made that 15 prediction right after the Hurricane Center had come out with their updated forecast for the hurricane season, where they continue to hold on to 17 to 24, I think, or 18 to 24. And I
Yeah,
said, how,
17.
I said, how are they possibly going to get to 24? I said,
No.
maybe 18 or 17, but, and that's, I said, well, I'll go with 15. So we'll see how many more we get out of this. But it certainly doesn't look like what was being underscored well before the hurricane season began last spring. There were so many articles, both in regular print media and also online, saying this was going to be, quote, an extraordinary hurricane season. In other words, alluding to the fact that we might have a season similar to, say, 2005, where we ran out of names and had to use the Greek alphabet. But we were nowhere near that. And then
No.
they started making excuses like, well, the intertropical convergence zone is much too wet to support any hurricane activity. It's too wet. It's too dry.
Well, you should have figured that out. You should have figured that out when you made your long range forecast.
Exactly. Well,
you know,
whatever.
um, watches and warnings across the United States are scant. There are actually a couple of winter storm warnings in southwest Colorado, believe it or not. And you also have flood watches up, flash flood watches up for eastern New Mexico. I just want to look at these winter storm warnings here. Um, winter storm warning. It looks like it's south of Telluride. I think everybody's heard of that. Moderate to heavy snow above 8,500 feet. Okay, bring your oxygen can with you. Along with the biggest impacts likely to remain above 10,000 feet. Bring two oxygen cans with you. Additional snow accumulations of 2 to 4 inches, with locally higher amounts above timberline on favored peaks, winds gusting as high as 35 miles per hour. And other than that, you can see it's just I kind of was hoping I'd wake up, and get this map up. You'd see it where there's nothing anywhere. I mean, that would have been pretty cool to see. But for all intents and purposes, that is the case. We do have actually a bunch of winter storm warnings up in Alaska, in central Alaska, and storm warnings that are up for the northwest coast and the coastal waters from there. So there's that. And here's the wide satellite loop. There's a little bit of an upper air rotation. There's an upper low that's sitting in southern Colorado. And that's why, that's the one area you're seeing some weather here in eastern New Mexico with the flash flood washes up. You can see Oscar on the lower right and everybody else, except for the northwest, where there's some clouds and some rain. Skies are mostly clear. And on the radar, a little bit of rain in the northwest, a few rain and a few thunderstorms. Eastern New Mexico, northwest Texas, southern Colorado, some snow above 8,000 feet. And in the east, there's nothing. Maine to Florida, back to the Mississippi River. And actually, you have to go pretty far west of the Mississippi before you find anything. The Storm Prediction Center does have a slight risk for severe weather in eastern New Mexico and a marginal risk into southern Colorado for tonight. Tomorrow, the marginal risk shifts into Nebraska, southward into western Oklahoma, and the eastern portion of northwest Texas. And then we get to day three, other than a small area of general thunderstorms in northeastern Minnesota and northernmost Michigan and Wisconsin, you really have nothing going on. And here's the 7-day rainfall forecast map, which I just updated. Uh, southernmost Maine down through Georgia. Actually, you know what? The light green is literally less than a tenth of an inch. So, for the most part, the whole United States is going to get less than a tenth of an inch, with a couple of exceptions. Some patchy areas in the northern lakes where they get a whole quarter of an inch, a small area in northeastern New York and northern Vermont where they get a whole quarter of an inch, a quarter to a half in Nebraska and down into Kansas, and also in eastern New Mexico, and then back up into Colorado and in the Pacific Northwest, where we have at least a few inches. If there's any place where there's activity right now, that's where it's going on. It's in the Pacific Northwest. I just want to say really quick too, Anthony Orr, thanks for hitting Super Chat tonight. Most appreciated as always.
Thank you.
And yes, and also welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight. And those of you watching in the background, welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We're here Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. Fridays and Saturdays when there's a storm around, which we know that's not going to be the case for a while. And so do turn your subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn your notifications on so you don't miss us. So before we go to the weather maps, I think Joe is going to um, take us on a drought tour with the drought monitor around
Yeah,
the country
I'll do that in
because
a moment. I just want to mention that you talk about how weather can change. 35 years ago, on this day in 1989, it was a Friday, 2.78 inches of windswept rain fell over New York City, and 5.34 inches fell over the past 4 days. Now, with the rainfall that occurred today, on this day 35 years ago, which is still a record for the date, Central Park's total precipitation for the year for 1989 topped 60 inches, making 1989 one of the five wettest years on record, with more than 2 months remaining in the year. The average annual rainfall is about 46 inches. And today, the winds, along with the rain, the winds gusted to 40 miles per hour. This was also the fourth time in 1989 that had back to back days in which an inch or more of rain fell, the most occasions of any year, later tied in 2020. So you talk about how bone dry it has been here today and this year, or latter part of this year. In 89, it was quite the opposite, quite a different story. They had quite a bit more rain, I think, than they could handle. Again, 60 inches already, and more to come, obviously, with 2 more months in the calendar. Now, as far as the drought monitor is concerned, we're going to put that up right now, and we're going to show you.
I'm gonna go get a glass of water.
Okay, get the
Because
glass, moisten your
there's
throat.
more there'll be more water in my glass than there has been rainfall. But go on.
Okay, so here it is, folks. This is the drought monitor for the northeastern United States. And as you can see, it's not terrible, it's not horrible, but whereas, let's say, 2, 3 weeks ago, this drought monitor was mostly white. In other words, no drought was showing up, no problems in terms of dry conditions. Now, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, with the lack of any precipitation, you're beginning to see a lot of yellow on this map of the Northeast. Yellow is indicative of abnormally dry conditions. That is in evidence across the state of Maine, central Maine, also across central and southern sections of New England, portions of eastern New York, and also far western New York. I would say about 60 to 70% of Pennsylvania. And then as you get further south, you start going into the next category, D1, which would be moderate drought. Moderate drought is in evidence across central and southern New Jersey, southwestern sections of Pennsylvania. There's also moderate drought across the extreme eastern end of Maine, and also for a few places in southeastern New Hampshire and northeastern Massachusetts, and also a small portion of the Berkshires. And then you go down into West Virginia, which is just below the southwestern border of Pennsylvania, and you have down there extreme drought in the red, and there's a slot. Let me just see which counties this happens to be. In West Virginia, I'm going to bring West Virginia up here. Just find out what areas these are. This is Jackson County, Rowan County, Calhoun County, Braxton County, and a small section of Webster County. This area here in dark red is indicative of exceptional drought. In other words, you think it's been dry up here. Quite apparently, in this particular part of West Virginia, they've had hardly anything. This probably goes all the way back many, many, many weeks through September and maybe into part of August to put themselves in a situation of exceptional drought right here in the central portion of West Virginia. So, again, going back to the Northeast, it is getting drier out there, but again, the white areas, much of central Pennsylvania, central and northern New York State, northern Vermont, New Hampshire, and a good swath of western Maine, and also a slot. And here's the irony, Joe. The irony is that in Connecticut, And we all remember what happened in Connecticut, don't we, Dennis Cassia? In Connecticut in August, they had those tremendous floods, cataclysmic floods. Well, looky what happened here. I guess as a result of that, while everybody else all around Fairfield County and also New Haven County, all around it's abnormally dry. I guess the residual effects of those heavy rains from August have kept New Haven and much of Fairfield County out of drought or even dry situation, at least as of this moment in time. But, if it continues dry, even these areas will be in the exceptional dry category. If not later this week, then maybe later on in the month. So there you have the situation in the Northeast. And if we take a look at the entire country, you could see that I would have to say, Joe, that about 70 or maybe even 80% of the country, in one way, shape or form, has at least dry or abnormally dry conditions.
Yeah, the
And are
number last week was 75.9. I think 75.4% of the
okay.
country was at least abnormally dry. So I'm thinking it's probably a little bit higher than that this week. I think I couldn't find the number on the site, this time around. I tried to
But
find it and I couldn't find it.
you could see quite evident, obviously, thanks to Helene, and also because of the excuse me, because of Milton. Um, this zone right here, the southeast, is currently either not experiencing much of any drought or much of any dry weather. That's again because of those two hurricanes bringing all of that precipitation, all of that rain. That's about the only large area of the country, this zone right here in the southeast, that is not undergoing any kind of transition to abnormally dry conditions. Everybody else, or most everybody else in the rest of the country, has either, unusually dry weather or verging on drought or severe drought. Uh, so we're entering a droughty phase, if you will. And if you take a look, even in Hawaii, they have abnormally dry conditions. Um, Alaska, no, not so much. But yeah, it's been dry, even nationwide, and it doesn't look like it's going to be changing to any great degree in the coming next few weeks.
Uh, just scanning the chat board here. Um, hold on a second. Do we have Bill Keneally here on the chat board tonight? Really? Is he? Because everything they're talking to him. Let me see. Unless he went away. No, he's on. Remember Bill Keneally from the Weather Channel?
Bill Keneally?
Yeah,
Is he on? Is
he's
he on the
yeah,
chat
he's on
board?
the chat board. I just said
Oh,
hi.
okay. Well,
That's
hi.
oh well, we're thrilled. We're thrilled. You see, Joe. I told you. How many times have I told you? There are people that are lurking in the background.
Well, it makes I said it before. Sorry if I am bothering people if I keep saying this, but Joe and we were shown the door, so to speak, because mostly we were well where we used to work was just shut down because of corporate greed, if you will, unable to find jobs in the broadcasting market, mainly because our degrees date back to the Carter administration. They don't want people like us. But Bill Keneally, I watched
Our
Bill.
our
And
figures
we
also
all
are
watched Bill when he was on the Weather Channel, the old Weather Channel, I might add, not the one that's on now. That it's not really to me the Weather Channel anymore. But yeah, Tom Contino mentioning the old Weather Channel guys like Charlie Welch, John Hope, God love him, Ray Ban, Bruce Edwards. I mean, those are the guys that we really used to turn to and I even admire for what they used to do back in the 80s and 90s. And Bill, it's an honor. It's an honor to have somebody like yourself watching us. And it only serves to, as I said before, you know, now that we're out of the broadcasting business, people like Bill, and all of the people on the chat board and people who come on and watch us during major storms, either hurricanes or tropical systems, summer or snow or nor'easters in the winter. It makes us feel relevant. It makes us feel that people still believe that where they want, you know, weather information, that they come to a couple of guys that don't, build it up, play it up, for the sake of ratings or whatever, that we tell you what we think is going to happen, and give you some clue as to what we think is you can expect. So anyway, that's great to see Bill Keneally on
Yeah, that's
chat
boy,
board.
that's a nice surprise. All right, so let's run through the GFS here. And by the way, just if I didn't make it clear before with regards to Hurricane Oscar, there is no threat to the United States whatsoever. Okay, so let's just make that because somebody was asking, and I think Annette something was asking about Louisiana. There's nothing here. Okay,
No,
nothing's going in the Gulf of Mexico. We're fine.
it's
So
interesting though with Oscar. It's interesting Oscar, making landfall in eastern Cuba before the hurricane even arrived. I read somewhere that Cuba, the entire island of Cuba, was blacked out, that there was some kind of electrical situation, and the whole island was without power. And I'm hoping that they got power back, because it's only with a hurricane moving through part of the island now. I'm sure they're just going to lose it again. But can you imagine, Joe, not having electricity in advance of a major or even a
yeah,
even a significant storm?
well, Cuba's a interesting place to begin with. Um, I mean, they
Yeah, well,
still
that
have.
has Desi Arnaz.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so here is that high in the east. It still has, normally when you have a normal pattern, you get a high comes out Canada, goes to the, mid-Atlantic or goes up into New England, and then eventually it moves out to the east. This one didn't do that. It just kind of came into the eastern states and sort of settled there because we've got this really big, strong ridge along the east coast. Now, here's the next cold front. And by the way, you get to this one point on Tuesday night into Wednesday. And there's hardly any precip going on anywhere from coast to coast in the United States. And this first front, when you're in a dry pattern and models try to make it rain, dry begets dry. So as we get closer and closer to this, the models were trying to show a stick of showers. Joe correctly pointed out but probably won't see much of anything at all. A little bit of a cooler shot of air comes in behind it, then that high goes out. You got another front that's going to try to come through sometime, maybe Saturday, and maybe that one produces a shower or maybe two showers. But I'll tell you right now, I mean, you're talking maybe a hundredth or 200th tops. And then that front goes out and it does turn a bit more significantly cooler behind that one. And then the high's going to settle offshore as we go into next week. And I think you can make a case for all of next week, Joe, that you don't see a drop of rain all week long and into the first weekend of the month of November. All the action, if you notice, by the way, is in the west, because that's where you've got the trough in the west and the ridge in the east. So you're getting, systems that are starting to come in off the Pacific and producing rain and snows in the northern Rockies when we move into the long range period. But as far as in the eastern part of the United States, go through at least the first week of November. If we look at the upper air, I mean, look at this. It's just nonstop. You've got this ridging in the east now, and then that allows a trough that swings through eastern Canada. That goes goodbye. And then another trough, that one for next Sunday. And then a big ridge starts to pop up into the east again, deep trough in the west. So, I mean, if you're a winter weather lover, um, you don't want to see this, okay? You don't want to see deep troughs like this down in the western part of the United States and big ridges in the east. And by the way, I don't know if you noticed, Joe, there was, I think it was the 12Z run of the GFS yesterday, and I had a laugh because, a lot of people saw it and they bit into it and they just couldn't resist. It had for Halloween, it had a six contour cutoff low off the New Jersey coast with thicknesses down close to 540. And if you pulled up the snow maps, It actually had away from the coast and not that far away. It had a swath of 4 to 8 inches. Western New Jersey, Eastern Pennsylvania to the Catskills, the Hudson Valley, and on up into Connecticut. One run, and of course, off that one run, all over the place on social media. The very next run, you went from a six contour cutoff to a 582 height. At Cape May. 6 hours later, so
Right,
it's gone. They took the bait, and well, of course, it's not a forecast. We're putting up this
right,
picture, but it's not a forecast.
right. Don't. It's not a
It's
forecast, so
it's
don't
never a it's never
fool
a
over it.
forecast. Why are you putting it up? Uh, okay, let's do some Briller Jeopardy here. I had my grandkids over today. I am exhausted. Okay. Um, we went to Joe, this today was the last day of the sorghum festival here.
Oh,
So, we spent time at the sorghum festival. I didn't
well, we
go
had a.
yes.
You and I. We often say we're joined together at the hip. So you had your big day, and today we were celebrating a couple of days late, but we were celebrating my son's 34th birthday. So he came along with my daughter-in-law, my grandson. My daughter-in-law's parents were here. My wife's older brother and his wife were here. My sister was here. We had a whole house filled with people celebrating, eating. And I'm just as tired as. And I told you after they all left, I just laid on the couch and I had a nap, which you have not had a luxury of. So I'm
No, I
sure.
have not. And I walked close to 8 miles today. I'm exhausted. So anyway, let's do some Briller Jeopardy. Okay, and the Giants lost today too, which is a
Oh
huge
God.
a huge shock. Um, all right, so it's lows. These are the average lows in these 5 cities, Joe, for the month of October. The average lows. We'll start with Boston
In October.
in October.
Okay. Average low in October. Well, what can I possibly suggest? How about um, how about 42?
Oh, that's just this little too low, a little too low. Mike Waterhouse Bonsai at 47 is extremely close. Extremely close. Um, Point Pig, you're a little low. Keith's Corner, 48, Joe, 48. 48.
Okay.
Next one is Chicago.
Chicago, I will say 45.
Close, close. Um, Leon of Lindenhurst. Leon, you're in Snake Country at 46. And Vincent Croce gets it at 47. Give him a bell ring, Joe.
I'll do that right now.
Point Pig also got 47, and John Melander got 47. Next is Denver, Colorado.
Denver. Denver, I will say 42.
Uh, that's a bit too high. Well, you know how I feel about Denver when it comes up. I can never figure out what's going on there. Um, so we've got Jason Fox. You said 37, and Northern Grace. You said 37, and Mike Waterhouse Bonsai. You said 37. You're wrong, but you're close. You're very close. You're very, very close. Norm Roberts and Frank Scalera, 39 is too high. Uh, Latex Dreams at 38, you're too high. Mike Waterhouse Bonsai comes out in with 36, and so does Coin Pig. So there you have it, 36. Give him a bell ring, Joe.
We seem very, very with our bell ringing tonight.
Yeah, we're very generous.
Very,
Hartford,
where?
Hartford,
Oh, Hartford. Hartford.
Hartford, Hartford.
Hartford. Um, how about
Well, just to recap, Boston was 48. Okay, if that helps you. Hartford.
43.
Oh, oh,
Wow.
oh, so close. So close. Frank Scalera, 41. Oh, oh, you're so close.
How about 42?
Oh, how about 42? That's the answer, 42.
Yeah. Okay. Well, very good.
And oh, ano, Joe. Oh, ano.
I still don't
Uh,
know what place you're.
ano.
L
You,
L.
I've been to ano. It's
I don't know.
Honolulu spelled backwards.
Oh, Honolulu. How about for Honolulu?
Honolulu.
How about 65?
Oh God, no, that's too low. That's too low.
Okay. Well.
Um, uh, CWTR Shark at 72 is closer.
Okay.
Mike Waterhouse, you're too high. Frank Scalera, you're knocking on the door at 75. Knocking on that door at 75. Rothmansky, you're knocking on the other side of the door at 73. So
Got to be
MWB,
74.
Mike Waterhouse Bonsai at 74. And finally, the bonus tonight is Caribou. Bonus is always Caribou. Caribou, Maine.
Caribou, Maine. Well,
Well,
well. How about
well.
39?
It's actually a pretty good guess. It's an incorrect guess, but it's pretty good. Um, Melander, you're at 38. You're very close, and so you, Scalera. 38 is close. You're close. Ugh. Okay, if you're in the 20s, you're out of range. If you're in the single
Yeah,
digits, you don't even belong there. Jason Fox at 37. Give him a bell ring, Joe. Give Jason Fox a bell ring.
why not? We got 52 likes according to my counter, so
Yeah, that works for me.
yep,
Okay, and you know what? Bill Keneally made our day.
it sure did. Bill, if you're still on, thank you so much, and come back. Come back a
Yes.
while. In
Shoot
fact,
me an e- shoot me
if
an
there's
email.
send us an let us know. We may even want to have you on, interview you.
Yeah, that'll be great. And get all
You
the
know who
dirt.
else we should interview, Joe?
Oh,
Maybe he'll send you his email. Maybe we can make an arrangement because he seems to have a fair amount of knowledge, and he's been in the business for almost as long as we have. Rich Rotmansky.
yeah, sure. That works for me.
I'd love to
Richard,
work with you.
Richard, wherever you are, shoot me an email. Um, or shoot Joe an email. So let's wrap it up. Thanks everybody for being here. Tomorrow night, come back. We'll have the same exact show because there's not going to be that much that's going to be different. Actually, I should give everybody at least a little bit of a heads up. Not this week, okay? So please don't message me after this because you weren't paying attention. Nothing annoys me more than that, okay? Um, so uh, next week, my daughter's getting married at the first weekend of November, so there will be some schedule changes next week. I probably will be gone like Wednesday through Saturday, and probably Sunday too. So that's good, but we'll hash it out when we get closer. But just giving you a little bit of heads up ahead of time. We will be back tomorrow night, and everybody have a great few hours left of your weekend. Nighty night, Joe.
Good night, Joseph.